Hey, hello everyone, and welcome to Diversely Geek. And welcome to the official launch of our newest, most amazing and innovative adventure called the Diversely Me Foundation. I am Nisha T. Mulchan, the Geeky NP, the geek mom to just about everybody, and also the CEO and the creator of this lovely model. And I thank you guys so much for being with us today on panel one of our newest project. And I have with me today a wonderful group of people. We are discussing a really relevant, really critical, I don't mean essential, I do mean critical series of topics throughout the 9 panels that we will be hosting today. And that would be PTSD and anxiety, inclusion, and self care, discussing mental health, race, culture, and identity, and how all of those are influenced by our fandom, passions, and healing hobbies, and how we can find better self, work our way towards our self care journey, and create healthy connections by creating healthy fandom communities and engaging in positive activities. Today's panel, which is our first one, is called the Science and Psychology of Fandom, Why It Works. I don't think that we can actively explain to you what it means to be able to engage in your fandom passions and healing hobbies unless we actually physically tell you what the science is behind that, so that you know how our brains and our nervous system are being affected positively when we engage in something that is so supportive, so healing, so warm, and so connected. And I have an amazing group of panelists with me today. And I will hopefully have everyone announce themselves in just one moment. There we go. And I'm going to welcome the wonderful collaborator and one of my very good friends. Well, everybody's my very good friend because you guys know me by now. So I'm going to welcome Ms. Sharon Blady from Speak Up.
Hi, Nisha. Hi, everyone. Yes, I am the founder of Speak Up, and I actually come at mental health, and my company is based entirely on mental health and fandom. So while I have a variety of fandoms, the work that I do is grounded predominantly in the Marvel universe with Embrace Your Superpowers and Bulletproof to Stigma, grounded in the mental health modeling and messaging found in the work of Korean global superstars Bangtan Soyeon and BTS. So that's what I do, is work with folks to help them use their fandom, or any fandom, these fandoms in particular, as part of their healing journey, knowing the power of fandom and the power of neuroplasticity.
That's unbelievable, and exactly why you're part of our family. Thank you so much for attending. And also the wonderful Dr. Deb Tedesco.
Hello, I'm Deb Tedesco, and I'm a nurse practitioner. I work with surgical patients in reconstructive surgery, and mostly with patients undergoing surgery related to cancer, specifically breast cancer or head and neck cancers, trauma, patients undergoing surgery for gender dysphoria and for body dysmorphia as well.
Oh my God. I told you I'd cry. You guys are getting me there. Go ahead. And this is the absolutely amazing Paula DeFranco.
Well, thank you, Nisha, and thank you for having me here today. Hi, everyone. I'm Paula DeFranco, and I'm an existential systems psychologist and a consciousness theorist. And I have developed a model called the O model, which we will learn about later. And my task and my service is to understand how our roles, and fandom being a role, these roles can create these positive endorphin-like feelings that balance out these negative events in our life. So I'm very happy to be here, and I look forward to learning more from
and lots of work in the future. As you can see, we already had a few comments. Our wonderful, very sweet friend Shirley Burton, and thank you so much because you are such a wonderful audience guest. Shirley, you are always here and supporting us. Also, thank you so much to Brian Winslow. Just to remember that we will have guests have the ability to interact with us during our show and ask us direct questions. So do pay attention, my lovely panelists, to the comments. And I am going to introduce the lovely Ian Wagner, who will then take us straight into our conversation.
Hello, everyone. My name is Ian Wagner. I'm a clinical mental health counselor here in Pennsylvania, working to specialize in trauma and also LGBT relations.
Ooh.
I'm also on the board of our local LGBT community center that I take great pride in.
Amazing. And congratulations on your honorarium the other day. That was absolutely
Thank
fabulous.
you.
You are just such a thrill. You're one of my, Ian has been with me since he was a baby, is what I feel like.
Little baby counselor.
Little baby counselor. Figuring out his role and his place in life. And he and I were like, one day, we're going to make this thing happen. And here we are 10 years later, and it's a thing, and it's happening. So, yeah, it's amazing. So, Ian, let's really dig into the science and psychology of fandom and what the heck it even means. Because most people, when I say it, are like, huh? How do those even connect to each other? So let's have a chat.
Sure. Well, one thing we think about is how do we process like visual images with trauma? So experiencing it visually, that triggers, we use our senses.
Yeah.
So how do we visually process trauma?
Are you asking us already?
I'm asking you already.
You are so mean. You took us straight into it. Okay. Do you want me, Sharon, do you want to jump on that one?
Well, I mean, it is really just that idea about what it does to us emotionally. So what we process and how we do it, it can be everything from, it basically triggers a physical response, and it's much, it can happen. I think that the thing that's interesting with the visual aspects of it is when you take information in, it can be from your immediate lived experience, but it can also actually, and this is where the fandom part connects in, it can come from anything from movies. And this is why, again, in terms of how we process things, and especially trauma, it's the idea of the experiential trauma versus, again, something like a secondary, a vicarious trauma. So we're wired in a way that allows us to take in and process things, and we can actually use our fandoms and these secondary processing, the secondary visual images of a movie, of a music video, of reading a comic book, and actually use those to counter what may have come in real life. So it's wonderful that the neuroplasticity allows us to take fictional and fictional experiential things and use them to help us heal from lived experience.
So we're talking about something called neuroplasticity when we talk about visual imagery. So is that okay? I'm just going to ask Paula to talk about that. Is that okay, Ian?
Yes, please.
So I would offer that the visual imagery of engaging in our fandom, and I'll use my own fandom, and that is I am a avid football fan, and I love my Miami Dolphins. That feeling, and even as I talk about it, you'll see a big smile where there's an endorphin release going on. And when we can take ourselves into this place, into this abstract mind space where we're actually connecting into, we can ground ourselves because we're experiencing, and this does become a counter for, Sharon said, the negative. The experiences that trigger us, we're like, aha, let me go back to that space that grounds me.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Love it.
And that actually think of what Sharon, what you were saying with the visual and linking to our past. Doesn't that work also, and maybe we'll get there in a moment, but with coping as well? I know my fandom, which is primarily Harry Potter, brings great joy to me. So wouldn't that work the same way?
Oh, absolutely. And in fact, that's one of the things that when I work with folks, I actually ask them about what are the things within their fandom that give them that safe place. And so that if they can't find a safe place in their real life to do that grounding and get that endorphin rush, what's a safe place? And it can be, again, a scene from a Marvel movie. Within BTS, the ARMY often there's particular videos and particular songs that are actually known and sort of shared throughout the community as being those safe spaces for particular kinds of events. And so it's that idea that your fandom and our ability to visualize things carried from that, you have that instant safe space. Like just again, watching Deborah and the idea of your football, you sit there and you think of a particular, there was that phenomenal touchdown or there was that particular win, and there's boom, instant access. Like you just get to go to your happy, your safe space. And that's where fandoms are so important, because they're things that we do carry with us. So if you're gonna, like, why not tap into that? It's something that you can self-generate, and that's part of the healing journey as well, is learning that ability to okay, it's okay for me to tap into that. It's good, it's safe, it's happy, and it's healing.
I think Deb wanted to answer.
Yeah.
Well, I think it's important also to say that we're retraining our brains with that, because our brains change. And if we change those pathways, we change the way, we change the nerve structure, the function, and the chemical activity. I think that's what fandom can do.
Absolutely.
I love
I put
that.
a banner up below, which is literally my just so everyone knows, this is the mission statement for the research that we published with the NIH about establishing and expressing your inner geek in your daily life as a credible, supportive source for establishing positive self-identity, self-acceptance, and building healthy connections. And I think that you all just gave us examples of how processing visual and auditory, because I think we threw that in too, stimulus actually really truly proof of concept.
Absolutely. And I would add in there as well that once we start the trauma, the fandom allows us to provide this foundation where we can start deconstructing the trauma as it arises, because now we have a counter. And so we're not left hanging out there in limbo. And it's something that wraps us and nourishes us, this place of awareness. What are the tools that are going to help me be the healthiest version of myself? And fandom gives us that arena to be able to tap into that.
Absolutely.
I enjoy the way, specifically with characters, you can actually use it two different ways. Like, this is a character I'm going to emulate, a character I want to be like. And you can also learn from someone else's mistakes, like a character. Like, I wasn't really a fan of how, I don't know, let's say Dumbledore, went about this. So I'm going to do things a little differently in a similar situation.
Yeah, it gives you an opportunity to role reverse with that character, okay?
Exactly.
Yeah. Well, and that's where the role work that you talk about, Deborah, is so important, because that ability to take on roles, because the roles that we've assigned ourselves in our own narrative related to our trauma does shape that wiring. And so in relearning, this is about that idea of, neurons that fire together, wire together. And we've had certain ones wired together based on how they've fired based on our trauma, and then stepping into that new role. And whether it's again using a character to emulate, or whether it's in a role-playing game, it gives you that opportunity to step into, again, a safe space, try different decisions, try different opportunities. And that's, I think, the part that I find so empowering about neuroplasticity, and why I use it in superhero metaphors. I'm like, superheroes work better with sidekicks. Our sidekick is built right in. Like, we've got, there's our sidekick as our neuroplasticity, and the idea that we've got that kind of control. And I think that's also very empowering for people that are going through trauma and are recovering from it, is there's a sense of powerlessness, and to be told that, hold on, you actually, you've got that power, is a really important part of the recovery. And as a part of a fandom, you've also got a community and a narrative that supports you.
And I agree with that. I think that's part of it. The social interaction that you get from the fandom, as well with other people who have the same interests, can help too.
I'm going to jump in because Brian made a point here, and it's so interesting that he said that, because one of the things that I was going to mention, Brian, because you said that listening, I'm not sure, take that and Westlife. I think you meant something else. And Westlife's always puts a smile on your face. And one of the most important things to remember is that just the act of smiling alone is enough to redirect chemical structural structures at the neurochemical level, at the synapses, at the in the nerve cells. So just the act of allowing yourself to take moments to smile in a day, laugh, and be gleeful is going to improve your health.
And let's not forget, how often, think about your fandom right now. Doesn't that bring a smile to your face? Look, right, a smile and a laugh. Exactly. Like, that's the beauty of fandom. Like, sometimes when I find myself stressed out, that's what I do, is I just close my eyes and I just either listen to some music, my favorite audiobook in my head, or a movie, just something auditorily, because I can control that easier than what I see outside. And it just makes me so happy. And yeah, I end up smiling. And the next thing you know, you're happy, you're smiling at someone else, and they're smiling at someone else.
Yeah, that's that.
Smiling is contagious. Smiling is
Exactly.
I
yeah.
think, Miss Paula, you have a couple of slides that you were going to go through with us so that we can actually understand the flow process in the nervous
Sure.
system through the brain.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah, let me see if we can get those up for you. That would be cool. And I think we're going to go with this one first. I hope I got the right one first. So we're going to put up a slide of the oneness model.
Okay. So in relation to roles, so this is the O model, and it's a tool for understanding self and to understand what it is that could trigger you. And we do it by examining the roles. And as Sharon was saying, we all embody so many roles in our daily life. And so if we look at the role of fandom, which is a very positive role, a healing role, we can see that the fandom role can actually be an antidote for the triggers that may come our way through the lived experience. And this could be by way of you're walking down the street and you meet an old love and you suddenly feel that. Well, you can go back and understand where this trigger is coming from. And it's based on your personal history and the trauma. But then we can step into the center circle here. And we're doing this in this open mind space. We're relying on what? What is the positive alter that fandom, that role is bringing us? So, and I'm sure each and every one of my colleagues and guests out there, we could all draw and list at least 5 roles that we all embody. And if we think deeper, some of those roles bring automatic triggers. Whereas the fandom role, it is the opposite, it is the flip side of that coin. It allows for healthy healing of what's in the shadow, the unconscious. It allows us to step into this place, like Ian was saying, where you think about it and all of a sudden the smile comes on your face and it's relief. It's plain and simple, it's relief from the suffering. And it comes to the other roles that we embody. Yes, surely, absolutely. And think about that, it does. It takes more muscles. It takes less muscles to smile than it does to frown. But how many times, if you don't look around, so many people are frowning. We are going through some difficult times. We're being constantly triggered by the environment, by issues to do with racism and social diversity. So what do? We start anchoring in on these roles, the roles that allow us to ground and to balance out the trauma that can come up. Because after all, otherwise we're just in this constant state of edge, anxiety, and this is the trauma. On the other hand, once we start seeing what these triggers are and the trauma underlying that belief system, then what happens is a deconstruction process has begun. We're growing in self-awareness. We're eliminating the triggers, the unhealthy behavior patterns that no longer suits us.
Can I ask you to just tag in real quick, because I know you're moving forward, but I have a question. Is that okay?
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely.
Could you explain to everyone there's objective or subjective behavior and outcome? Could you put into an example with the model, what would be an objective versus a subjective behavior related to engaging in a positive activity?
Sure, absolutely. So when we say subjective, this is the story that we've created for ourselves, our narrative, based on our experience. But this subjective behavior is where our triggers and the unhealthy behavior patterns come from. When we participate in our fandoms, it gives us this window where consciousness resides. So fandom, or any positive role that we step into, for example, I'm a meditator, When I step into this role of meditation, it allows me this open mind space of consciousness where I can pick apart and say, oh my goodness, that's my own faulty thinking. So here it is. We're all going to have bad experiences. We do not have that choice. What the objective outcome, this objective mindset of openness, is that the experience happens, but it's really how we react to that experience that ends up grounding with us. When we hold on to these roles that create good endorphins, that make us feel good, that bring a smile to our face, it's a counter to that subjective. It's the breathing room that we need so we can step back and say, hey, I'm all right just like that, and this is just faulty thinking. Because the mind's default mode is thought, and thought is a great subject, but a terrible master. I hope that answered your question.
It really does, absolutely. And I'm hoping what we want to do is perhaps Deb or Ian, you want to, and I definitely want you to move forward. What we're looking is try and give an what is a fandom reference you have? I heard what you said, and I completely engaged in when I pick up a book and I start writing in that moment, and in that moment that I engage in what's called automatic writing, which just so everyone understands, automatic writing is one that has no predisposition to it. You do it simply because you let your mind connect. The thought connects, and the neuroplasticity of the brain basically moves thought into action, and then you create and put your hand down and you write. It's something I do to allow just the mind to flow completely. So is that a good example of using something that I'm very happy that I'm a fan of doing to be able to engage these positive pathways?
Absolutely. Absolutely. This is what neuroplasticity is about, and this is what Deb was talking about earlier. When we start deconstructing these patterns that no longer serve us, in turn we are reconstructing healthy pathways, because energy, Einstein said it, energy cannot be created or destroyed. And so therefore this energy must be transferred somewhere else. So yes.
That sounds, thank you so much. And we'll do the second panel in just a moment, if that's okay. Can we split them, Paula? That's okay?
Oh yes, absolutely. Yes.
Poor Ian, he's supposed to be leading, and I'm like jumped straight in.
No, you're fine.
It's just my brain flows. You all knew me by now.
Yeah.
Ian, I know that you were going to tap into this question, and I think with you and Deb being on the active forefront of working literally physically and mentally with these patients, myself, but the two of you more. I think we had a conversation about how does the brain translate a negative trauma experiences versus a positive, supportive, or empathetic experience? How would you and Deb translate that in terms of the physical body and then the mental body?
Deb, would you like to start?
Well, I would say I would like to focus on pain management. I deal with pain management with my surgical patients, and pain so there have been theories of pain since Plato and Aristotle. And it was believed that pain came from the heart. That's where it originally was, which I like that idea. But also previously, it was thought that you have an injury, the pain impulse is transmitted along the spinal cord to the brain, and then you have a perception. Now that perception is changed by it's biopsychosocial. It's not just a physical experience of the pain. Mm-hmm. So, you have a psychological factors that impact, you have social factors that impact, as well as the biological. And it's not just with surgical pain, it's not just the incision that hurts. There are other things going on as well. Say, for instance, in one of our trauma patients, they have the trauma of what they have experienced. They have the pain. The trauma is affecting their pain as well. So one thing that's good to do, and I think how the fandom leads into this as well, is if, let's say someone has undergone surgery and we want to limit opioids. We don't want to use a lot of opioids for surgical pain management. We use multimodal pain management. So we use multiple different medications, and complementary and alternative methods as well. But the fandom plays in here too, because you have those endorphins that are released, and then your pain that you feel it's not as bad. I'll give you the experience, and I'll use a family member. My daughter had a surgery, and the fandom that she used after surgery, she limited her opioids. She used other medications, but she's a big fan of Dexter, and she watched Dexter afterwards. She did not need a lot of pain medications afterwards, and that's what makes her happy. So people should use that.
That's a good one.
Mhm.
Okay.
You just reminded me of something. I was recovering from my own cancer surgery, and I swear to God, the nursing staff must have thought I was out in left field, because the recovery from my cervical cancer, it was I needed to, at a certain point, walk up and move around. I had, and again, this is back in the day, so it was like an old iPod. I had an iPod, and I was doing laps to the Red Hot Chili Peppers. And it was just, I had my headphones on, I was doing whatever, and I, didn't even touch a T3, much less anything else. I think they may have, let me go right at the moment of my earliest release possibility, just to stop me from pasting the balls. But it's amazing what. So congratulations to her, and I'm glad that Dexter worked for her.
Yes, do what you like.
Yeah, and I think there's something to be said about distraction. When you're just sitting there and you're dwelling on the pain, of course, it's going to bother you more. But if you're doing something you enjoy, like rocking out to Red Hot Chili Peppers, yeah, it's going to hurt and bother you less. I actually had surgery recently, and when I came home, my sister saw me walk through the door and literally turned on The Little Mermaid. Yes, it's a guilty pleasure. It reminds me of my childhood. And I sat in my lazy boy, felt better, and passed out and went to sleep. Pain was gone. And all because of Ariel's soothing voice.
That's lovely.
That's perfect.
Yeah, that is perfect.
Yeah.
All right, fine. I will just say that I went through my own illness, and for me, it was the Slumdog Millionaire album. Oh my God, I rocked that so much. Oh my God,
Yes.
Okay. Well, of course, I'm Indian. I should be able to sing it, and I can, but not at 11 in the morning. I am.
I want to thank you all, because after we finish it, I'm going to download that
There
album.
you go. I got it.
In at least 10 years.
Little A.R. Rahman never hurt anybody.
That's
Okay. you see what we all did? We
Yes.
all had what's called a unified, positive, connective reaction.
Yes.
Direct reaction and response. In that one moment, and thank you so much for saying it, we literally exemplified the science, the psychology behind our model, didn't we? Just do that.
Yes, we did.
We actually showed the oneness model. Look at that, people. I love when a plan comes together.
Yes.
Okay, so I speak nerd all the time, so I will always have double entendre in there. It's the way life is with me. So Ian, did you want to chat about the mental side of that empathetic response to the trauma, and how we can connect specifically to maybe a visual image, or specifically to something, even if it's, racing or biking, etc., that would help in that, from that perspective?
Yes, so I'm very big with coping skills. It's like the bread and butter of counseling, in my opinion. So in doing so, what I normally focus on my clients is mindfulness in visualization. So for example, the Little Mermaid thing, say I wasn't home, I can easily close my eyes. I've seen that movie a gazillion times. I'm pretty confident that's not an exaggeration. And I can watch the movie just by closing my eyes. It's all about finding what brings you comfort. So I have a client who's all about video games, for example. And when he gets mad, what we're working on currently is him planning out his next video game episode. So he is right now playing Batman Arkham City. I've already played that game, so it kind of gave me a one-up on him. I was like, yes, I know what he's going to be doing. So we discussed, how are you going to approach the Joker? How are you going to approach, not spoiling anything, but different episodes of the game. And that actually, you can see his mood change right there in front of you, like you see it. So when I'm doing family counseling with him and his mother, I encourage her to ask him. That way, there's a shared interest there. You know, he can show her and share something so powerful with her, and she also has something to kind of bring him down during some um, episodes of hostility, for example, and even sometimes pain because he does have some physical ailments as well.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Does anyone on the panel play any video games or do something similar, more like an activity?
Oh, I'm a Dungeons and Dragons nerd, so I mean, I just love the therapeutic model of that. And I swear, the group that I'm with this year, I don't know, I'm not telling tales out of school, but I think the fact that we started just as the pandemic kicked in, and we've been playing predominantly over Zoom for 15 months, despite the fact we all live close to each other. It's been very therapeutic, and that there's a lot of things that I'm sure our characters are doing within the context of their roles that are allowing us to do things that we can't do otherwise, that you can't do in real life, but you could do in a dungeon, or that you can play out, and again, play out and plan out differently. So it allows you to test drive some different things. And I think that's very, again, from a coping perspective, yeah, it can be really healing. And I do love the fact that you mentioned too, the idea of bringing the parents in, because that's the other part I do with a lot of families as well. And it's that idea of finding out what the kids' fandom is and why, and then how they can connect. And then it might just seem like it's some simple childhood thing that, oh, they're just interested in that, but expressing that interest, finding out what the interest is, and having a language to speak about it. And that even helps parents learn ways that again, a fandom can become a coping mechanism or a coping tool, and how they can empower their child with that.
Exactly. And it even becomes even more beautiful if the parent, and this isn't like a must, but if it happens organically, if the parent becomes a fan too, you can't like make that magic up.
I am 100% going to tell you that my entire organization is a living, breathing example and a working example of exactly this, isn't it, guys?
Yeah.
And every single person who I embrace as family, which is everyone here and probably thousands more, understand who I am as a human being. I had to live through the grief of the loss of my brother, which is the inspiration to this organization anyway. Yes, I cry. You guys know that. And having to heal through a high level of emotional and physical trauma, because I also went through the cancer journey shortly before, years before he had passed, and working through all of those things in my life and knowing how to help my children to live through a tremendous force of grief. We connected with Harry Potter, which is how the organization was formed in the first place, right? Going to the wizarding world of Harry Potter, making sure that they had their midnight runs to get the books when they came out as they were growing up, making sure that I paid attention to them when they told me how important the stories were. But not just Harry Potter, right? That just happened to be an extremely beautiful, breathing example because the wizarding world, we live in Orlando, and we had the ability to be able to go there and form these wonderful connective forces known as fans, right? But my healing journey has now, thankfully, because they drew me in as my kids. So I'm telling you, it was kind of the opposite, right? I always let them engage. I wanted them to be creative and active, and I highly recommended it and supported it. But as I grew into my own journey of healing, they helped support me
Yeah.
by bringing me into the structures that help me to be able to reconnect to myself and understand my grief. And
Both. Oh, sorry, go ahead.
no, it's okay. We're gonna just chat. And that's where Avatar: The Last Airbender came in, because the healing journey for me was through a grief point of a character named Zuko. And I don't know how many people know the show, but it is probably one of the most influential series probably ever written. It was a um, by by Brian and Mike. I have to think of their names at this moment. Oh, Brian DiMartino and Mike Coniesco. They created a world where, as a parent, I could look and really be able to fully understand who I am as a parent and how I would work on helping someone else through their coping and their grief. And Zuko was this wonderful 16, 17-year-old young man who was living in a traumatic existence. And the existence he lived in, I connected to in ways I could never have imagined. But he has always remained a huge, huge part of my healing journey and will always be that. And we created this organization because the voice of Zuko, Dante Bosco, who y'all know from Hook as Rooster, I guess. You know,
Rufio.
when I told him the story of this journey and how I brought it into my medical practice with children who also are coping, he said, "Well, then you need to make it an organization, and you need to make this real so people can also learn from it." And so we did. So I wanted to share because I don't know if everyone understand or knew where this even came from. So sorry, I don't.
Well, and that's an important message, because for a lot of families, especially for those of us that have got intergenerational trauma, and that we're, like, for example, my kids have, witnessed domestic violence, and I'm an abuse survivor from both my father and my ex-husband, and they are, aware of that as well as having been exposed to it. So for us, it was actually shared family fandoms, and that the work, and actually both of the programs that I offer are tied to each of my kids. What emerged as Embrace Your Superpowers after I came out of elected office and after an academic career was actually something that started a decade ago to give my son tools, as he had a long awaited diagnosis for his ADHD, neurodiversity, multiple neurodiversity diagnoses, and his anxiety. So it was about using the familiar, they'd been raised on Marvel and Star Wars. And so I basically told him he was a mutant, that had superpowers, and that we use Cyclops as a reference. And so what we did was, a lot of it was using the storytelling that was there and having him relate to things in stories, or him expressing, and then using those to then import something that was therapeutic. So maybe it was cognitive behavioral therapy, maybe it was grounding, maybe it was the use of the war room and teamwork to talk about how superheroes train. So therefore, doing a meditation or breathing activity wasn't mom saying, okay, well, now we're going to do some grounding and you're going to do some mindfulness. It was flipping it into something where, well, you see how so-and-so does that in the war room, or you see how so-and-so takes time. And so it was using those things. So that was something that's what grew into the program. And the same thing with the BTS was my son coming back from Seoul, and I fell down the K-pop hole once he came back as I was building my company. And so it was drawing on that music. So I think that and those are also now foundations of our relationships. And we've got the overlaps into your world of Avatar and anime, and those are all things, like, those are the shorthand conversations we have. And so, for example, like the Marvel TV series that have been coming out, oh my God, the stuff we have dealt with in between, in terms of processing family stuff through WandaVision, through Falcon and Winter Soldier, and now coming into Loki, they give you places to have conversations. So it's wonderful when families can do that. And I think sometimes they do it organically, not recognizing, like, it's a bonding thing to go with your son to a football game, for example, and it has mental health benefits. We don't always consciously articulate them, but it's really nice when we can take them and use them with other tools.
I want to add to that. I totally agree with that. And I think that part of the reason my second daughter, my 21-year-old daughter, she is a big fan. Growing up, it was Harry Potter, reading the books. She is a huge Taylor Swift fan, and a Marvel fan. But when she was 15, she came out. And I think that closeness that we had, those bonds that we had, and part of it was reading the Harry Potter books, watching all the movies, just the closeness that we had made that easier for her.
Mm-hmm. Oh my God. And that's literally the exact story with my own child, with my daughter. Also, her making her decision when she came out was also because we have an extremely strong bond, because we nerd together. We have that connection that I just can't even. It gives me goosebumps to think about the fact that even with the stress we go through, that we're so highly connected in these things. So thank you for sharing that. Aw.
Yeah.
All right, my friends, we are on our last few minutes right now.
Totally agree, Brian. Totally agree with Brian. Yes, there's it's not that I don't love DC, but Marvel has a story arc and a writing style that I think is much more connected.
So
I love
am
how Brian's trying to cause trouble.
Yeah. Oh no,
I allowed him to say it.
I'm just saying there's an extra level.
The answer is no.
The
Remember,
answer is all fandoms are welcomed here.
They're all welcome. I'm just saying that's where my special sauce is.
so honestly, while I welcome the remark, to be fair, I am a DC fan, and I have been before I was born, because my mom was reading DC when she was married to my dad before I was born. So it is part of my legacy.
Oh, me too.
Yeah.
There's no shortage of Dark Knight and Killing Joke copies behind me.
I think we'll do one of these mental wellness panels through the MCU and the DC world, an entire work, just so we can get to a place where people can really see the benefits of every one of these characters.
Oh my gosh,
they're just so freaking brilliant. All right, just a real quick walkthrough on this next one, Paul. I apologize.
So this is really what you're seeing here is what happens when we engage in our fandoms. So if you look at the two circles, the first one is it's called triggers. And we are a society that we're constantly being led by our triggers. We're very reactive. But what you're seeing here, if you notice, is that the second circle, which is our consciousness, our self-awareness, it is overlapping those triggers, because really by practicing in our fandoms, by practicing mindfulness, by stepping into the O model and understanding how our triggers work in relationship to roles, we achieve this outcome, which is demonstrated as authenticity and humility and fairness and fun and playfulness. It's an expansive mind that is not being led by these unhealthy behavior problems. And it's really grounded on self-care and doing you. I think Ian said it earlier, where we give in to all this stress and anxiety. And how many people out there actually engage in activities that bring them joy and happiness? So I say we need to get out there and play more, have more fun, embrace our fandoms, and let that inner child heal and unify that adult within. So this is what that's showing you. A fandom oneness approach. We are all connected, and we talk about this and we're all smiling. So this is what consciousness is. It's the ability to set aside and say, I'm not my experience. Leading towards the experiences that nurture us. So thank you.
That is absolutely brilliant. The concept of self-awareness. Love it, love it, love it. Go ahead, Ian.
Sorry, I was on mute for a second.
Yeah.
But I completely agree. You have to allow that inner child to heal. And sometimes I think as adults, we give ourselves too hard of a time about that. Exactly. It's like, that's kid stuff. You have a work, you have bills to pay. But letting that kid heal and letting them out to play every once in a while.
Yeah.
Honestly, that's the best medicine I can ever think of.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, obviously me watching a Daniel Radcliffe movie, doing some, watching Sailor Moon at times, like it all just makes me really, really happy. And even, I know we're wrapping up, but a little like childhood plaything. Every once in a while, I am guilty enough of taking the water hose out back and doing Sailor Mercury attacks with some of my friends. Yeah, we go that bad.
Heck yeah, why not?
It's summer. It's hot.
Right, why not?
Okay, so my last statement then, based on that, is fandom is timeless. The science behind and psychology behind loving and engaging in fandom is timeless and ageless. There is no beginning and no end to it. You do this as a continuum from the moment of birth to the moment you leave the earth. I want people to understand, never let anyone tell you are too old to engage in your fandoms. Never.
That's right.
Unless it's harmful. And even, because that does happen. There are harmful ones. I just want to make that little distinction, right? It's got to be the ones that make you smile and are not harmful to others. Correct?
Yeah.
Agreed.
All right, my friends. Oh my God, we could just keep going, but it is time for us to learn how to find you. We did have 2 comments. I'm going to put them up really quick. Brian talked about Christopher Nolan. Lauren, you guys, go ahead, and while I put these up just real quick, I'm gonna thank you, Lauren. I agree with you. The trilogy was extremely revelational, 100%.
Beautiful.
Shirley, Nicole says she lost her father in 1986. She does the same. She uses character points to be able to connect to find her father. It's amazing and brilliant, and 100% a healing and coping strategy. And then Shirley said, "What can I do when there's really no one in my family I can nerd with?" But we are your family,
I was
sweetheart.
about to say, can I take that? This is your family. Fandom is your family. We're your safe space.
Mm-hmm.
You're never alone.
And you know that, Charlie, because we're bringing you these moments like this all the time. Reach out to us when you need us. You know how to find us, okay, my love? We are always here for you.
Yeah.
Any excuse to fandom or geek, I'm in.
Yeah.
Absolutely, I agree.
And that's the thing about family trees. We can prune the toxicity off, and we can also graft on those branches. And those branches of the family you make can include folks from your fandom. There are folks that are parts of my different fandoms that are closer to me than people that I am genetically related to.
Exactly.
Chosen family.
For a fact. Okay, I have you up, Sharon. Tell us a little bit about Speak Up.
Well, like I said, I've shared a little bit before, but I do everything from organizational consulting and leadership and executive coaching to get folks on board with a new way of looking at how they can lead their organizations in a mentally and neurodiversely healthy environment. And then I have the two signature programs, Embrace Your Superpowers and BTS, and I can be found at www.speak-up.co. And there's going to be some new stuff coming to the website because I am now building membership communities, starting with the Embrace Your Superpowers. So what you see today won't be necessarily what you'll see on the website in a few weeks from now.
Yeah, it will. But you'll be featured on our website as it changes and morphs in this next 2 weeks. Yeah. And then we have the lovely Paula.
Well, thank you very much for having me here today. And you can find me at actionmethods.org, where my work is solely centered around the oneness model. And I use that to create authentic leadership and personal development. So look me up. And thank you, Nisha, for having me here today.
This is incredible. And Deb, I know you're not a social media bound person, but you could certainly let people know what practice you're working with.
I work at Orlando Health in Orlando, Florida.
Thank you so much. And anyone who's has working through body dysmorphia and is making a decision on specific surgeries, top surgeries, anything in the transgender spectrum, they can provide those, right?
Top surgeries, and we have one surgeon who specializes in body contouring after bariatric surgery.
Oh, it's amazing.
That's great.
Absolutely incredible work. Oh my God. You're literally healing people going through the actual spectrum of this everything healing, emotional, spiritual, and physical. Thank you so much. And I know you, so I know you're very loving and kind to all of them. So.
Thank you for having me.
Oh my God. I have held my tears in. Okay, Ian, tell us where to find you, my love.
You can find me on Instagram at I_Douglas88. No, just I_Douglas, sorry. And I'm still currently working in Pennsylvania in mental health, and hopefully you'll be doing some of my own foundation stuff soon, so we'll find out.
Absolutely amazing. Well, and Ian is along with us on the journey as well, because he's one of our consulting counselors. Letitia, thank you so much for that comment. I again agree with you very much so. It's amazing that we connect to characters that we never thought we would. Isn't that just brilliant? Who would have thought it? It's just, that's also a great point. So as we move forward, just to understand, Sharon and speak-up.co is going to be a collaborative partner with the Diversely Me Foundation services and projects as we move forward. I believe Dr. Paula DeFranco and the actionmethods.org will also be working with us on merging, as you saw today, our model with the Oneness model, which is groundbreaking and innovative, people. It's never been done in this world. So you guys are hearing something today that is honestly going to change the platform of mental wellness, without a doubt, with a global approach. And Ian has been with us on this journey from the beginning of his thoughts to being who he is today and being that amazing person that he is. Will be staying on with us as a mental health counselor consultant, correct? As we
Correct.
create our model and our counselorship and our mentorship programs as we move forward. And then I hope Deb is going to stay on as a consultant as well. No pressure, but if you want to be part of the family, we embrace you for sure.
Thank you.
Okay. All right, my loves, we are ready to head out. It is 11:50. Our next panel is at 12 o'clock. Whole different dynamic. Hey, Yami, you want to cue the Brandon for number 2 so people know what we're heading into? And yes, we have a production team behind us who are absolutely amazing. And I am giving them horrors today as we try to keep up with my brain.
And they're doing such a fantastic job. Thank you, everyone behind the scenes.
Thank you, backstage. Brilliant. So Ian and Sharon are jumping on with me in panel number 2, I believe. So you guys want to go ahead and exit, and I am ending today's podcast. Thank you guys so much.
Bye, everyone.
Thank you to everyone, the 15 plus people out there who have been watch panel number 1. Thank you so much. Much love to all of you. See you soon.